Is Monday, the 21st of December 2020, the Winter Solstice in what we refer to as the Northern Hemisphere, or the Summer Solstice in the Southern Hemisphere, Australia and such places. I used to refer to Australia as Down Under. These days, I just call it Over Yonder. Anyway, first things first, another t-shirt. It reads, Connect the Dots, CV19 Hoax. It's another one from the Alt UK range. Big thanks to Anthony for sending this. I've featured one of his previous shirts in my last video. If you want to get yourself a range of truth alternative type t-shirts, just head to Alt UK. I'll put the details in the show notes below, and these would be a real conversation starter around the Brussels sprouts on Christmas Day lunch, wouldn't they? Hours of fun to be had there. I've just got back from the Questioning History event, and I feel that this really was unique in being the only truth/alternative type conference or meetup group or any kind of gathering over a weekend in the whole of 2020. Normally there's plenty such conferences, but as we know, it's been one hell of a year. But it feels like a miracle, it feels like a blessing from the gods. We were able to pull this event off. It took place in Battle, right near the site of the Battle of Hastings 1066 in East Sussex. And I've got to give major props and respect to Gloria Moss, the organiser and the instigator of this event. She pulled off, like I say, a mini miracle. So the conference ran Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it was residential in a beautiful site, a beautiful location out there in the country. And the idea was that people buy a ticket and stay for the whole weekend. So there's accommodation and there's catering. All the food is delivered on site, so you don't have to leave the venue for the whole weekend. So we all arrived Friday. Questioning History did take place last year at a different venue in Hertfordshire. If Gloria had chosen this venue for this year's event, it wouldn't have gone ahead because Hertfordshire got plunged into Tier 3 initially, which wouldn't have allowed the venue to host the event. In the event, we all arrived there Friday. On Saturday came the announcement from the demons, the evildoers, the psychopaths, the mental torturers, that they were going to plunge large parts of London and the southeast of England into the new Tier 4. More arbitrary, bullshit, draconian rules, so-called, delivered on a whim, and specifically to psychologically torture people. I'll get onto that shortly as to the timing behind this particular announcement. But Saturday afternoon came the announcement that Hastings and the region surrounding it was going to be plunged into Tier 4. The only part of East Sussex, or I think even West Sussex, that was going to get put into Tier 4. So this looked like it might threaten the ability of the event to continue, but fortunately the venue were very cool about it, very accommodating, and they made the point that because we had all arrived on Friday before this ridiculous BS kicked in, and we were going to be the same group in the same gathering, the event would be allowed to continue all the way through to 4 p.m. Sunday. So despite what could have been a major obstacle scuppering this whole thing, we did manage the whole 3 days. And what a glorious blessing it was to be around like-minded people, just to have that camaraderie, that friendship, that humanity. Lots of hugging, lots of handshakes, lots of people just behaving normally. So we had many presentations questioning various events in history going all the way back. So we were looking at the Bayeux Tapestry, we were looking at the Battle of Hastings itself, we were looking at aspects of archaeology. My talks were on the counterculture hippie scene of the 60s, the history of the BBC, and looking at the C-word narrative that we currently have. Great speakers. It's good to hook up with my friend John Hamer, very prolific author. He did a presentation on the Titanic and another one on Winston Churchill. David Bates was there virtually by Zoom link, which didn't go too well, but he was there in spirit anyway. Andrew Goff was there. Rob Dean, my good friend from up north, got up there and did a presentation, as did various other people. Jennifer Steele did a really good one examining the symbology on the new £20 note. So many subjects were covered. It was a real kind of Truther conference, everyone was awake and aware. Everyone knew what time it was. No mask wearing, no scurrying about being scared of other people breathing on you. It was just very refreshing in that regard. And you know, one of the best things about the entire weekend for me, and probably many of the other people in attendance, was Saturday evening, when we'd reached the end of the programme of presentations and we were able to relax in leisurely mode. And so we all decamped to the library in this country house venue, and we just had a great gathering like things used to be in the old days. There was chat, there was conversation, there was drinks, people were going out for a smoke. A couple of people had a guitar, they were doing a sing-song, people were joining in, and we just stayed up late and did natural things, you know, human interaction, the way creation intended us to be. We are social animals and we need that contact with others. And it speaks volumes that that's all been taken away from us, or attempted to be taken away from us in what's been done this year. Like I say, it's all psychological torture. So a huge amount of value in that event. I loved hooking up with all the people there. It's a great crowd. Big thanks once again to Gloria, and I really hope that wherever we're at the end of 2021, we're going to be able to do another one of these. It was a fantastic experience. So back to today's date, the 21st of December. Obviously, a lot of hope is being placed by many people in this particular date, given that, first of all, it's the winter solstice. If nothing else, it's the shortest day now in the Northern Hemisphere, meaning that from tomorrow onwards, the days slowly start getting longer, more hours of sunlight, of daylight, going all the way up to the summer solstice in June. And that's a blessing for me, because it's a funny thing. Before I woke up, back in my DJing days, when I was out there as a club and radio DJ, and that was my main profession, I actually lived a nocturnal existence. Before I got married and had kids, you know, when I was young, free and single, I used to just live for clubs and gigs and parties, and I would be out till late most nights. And even on nights where I wasn't out DJing, I would still stay up till 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, because that's the way my body clock was tuned in. And in the winter months, it was very common for me to arrive back from a club just as the sun was coming up, and I'd spend the entire day, all the hours of daylight, sleeping, and then I'd wake up around 4 p.m. when it's already getting dark. So I never actually was exposed to daylight and sunlight for weeks on end every year. And for me now, looking back, that's a horrifying experience. I don't know how I was comfortable with that, because I've changed. And since I've been on this path of truth-seeking and gaining knowledge, and with all the realizations and inner standings that I now have, I appreciate the sun. I appreciate daylight, the power, the life-giving power of vitamin D, and just nature and creation itself. And I love the daylight hours now, and I want to spend all the daylight hours awake, absorbing it, taking it all in. I don't do well with darkness anymore. Maybe there's something symbolic there, but I really struggle at this time of year when it's dark by 4 p.m. Don't like being cooped up in the house for all those remaining hours of the evening. I truly look forward to spring and the onset of more hours of sunlight. So it makes me happy that we're on the path to that kind of return now, after a very dark half winter that we've already endured. But a lot of people have so much hope and faith invested in this date being some kind of trigger for raised human consciousness, positive vibrations incoming, some kind of paradigm shift, as we have these amazing planetary conjunctions between Jupiter, Saturn and Pluto, as we're told. And I really don't think anything amazing or earth-shattering is going to happen today itself. I'm not expecting that. I think this is probably the beginning of a process. It's going to be quite a long process. I don't know whether it's going to involve weeks or months or years, but I see today as the beginning point of a new era that is going to slowly roll out. What that's going to look like, what that's going to involve, how people are going to respond to it, I really have no idea. I'm sure many others will have an opinion on the subject and will state it, but for me, just waiting and seeing what pans out. I've learnt many lessons this year, and one of them is it's very dangerous and it's very counterproductive to put dates on things and to put specific predictions on things and say, on this date, this is going to happen. By this point, this will have occurred. Because I've seen many people make predictions of that nature this year and they have not come to pass in almost 100% of cases. So I feel it's best to just err on the side of caution and detachedly observe. Let go of all attachment to the outcome. Do whatever you can still, obviously, by way of, your input to influence events, if you're able to do that in any way. But other than that, it's a case of observing and waiting to see what pans out. So we will see what the 21st of December 2020 brings in. I'm trying to keep high hopes. I'm trying to keep my vibrations positive and high today. Very important to do that. I'm not always able to do that, but today I'm in a good space and I intend to stay there to make the most of this situation that we're told is once in a lifetime, once in several lifetimes, according to many. Already been happening in 2020 and is likely to continue, maybe exacerbated by this date, the solstice, is that we've had a purging by the earth itself, by creation, by nature, of toxic influences. So forget the C word for a moment, which is relevant, but so much stuff under the radar of that has been coming out this year. We've heard about the imminent arrests of high-profile people. We have to wait and see whether that's a reality or not, but what's been happening? Where are the royal family? Where's Prince Charles? Why have they been using an imposter in interviews? What's happening with the Queen? We've got a Christmas message in a few days, but we don't know whether that's been recorded recently. Could have been pre-recorded a couple of years ago. Could be CGI trickery that's putting it out. We'll wait and see on that. But there's been a lot of revelations coming out this year about political corruption, particularly in the United States, various criminal activities, child trafficking, sex trafficking, pedophilia, so many revelations on that front. And it really feels as if, and also the trickery and the corruption and the deception that's been deployed by the Democratic Party in the States to try and keep Donald Trump out of a second term in office. We can't forget that. Major event from this year, tells us a lot, a wake-up call for many people. And so it feels to me as if the earth is kind of purging a lot of this harmful, toxic, negative material, and it's being pushed out there. And it puts me in mind of what we're told, what we have been told, about the nature of a virus. Now, the jury is out on whether a virus is what we've been told it is, whether it's been misdescribed in the narrative of this year, because there are many medical professionals, many qualified doctors who will state that a virus can't be spread from person to person. A virus is the body's way of purging toxic influences, toxins. So where the body has absorbed material that it deems harmful to it, not helpful, the body's natural immune system finds a way of pushing that stuff out through the nearest available exit. And so our bodies, purge toxins in that way. And that is what a virus is, according to many. So it's a personal experience that's happening to you in your body, getting rid of stuff that you don't need, getting it out there because it's harmful, cleaning things up. And you can't pass that on to other people. It's something that's happening just with your own body. So I see an analogy here, I see symbolism, and that's something I've learned to spot so much more this year as well. Just metaphors and similes and analogies. So in the same way that a virus, so we're told, and isn't that relevant to this year, purges toxins, so it seems the earth itself, creation itself, has been doing that with all this dark stuff that's been revealed this year, that's been pushed out there. And I'm sure there's much more of that to come. And that has to be a good thing, because that stuff can't stay hidden. It only does harm for as long as it's beneath the surface. It has to break surface, it has to be seen and acknowledged by people everywhere and dealt with. And I'm sure we've got much more of that to come. We're waiting, of course, patiently, we have no choice, on what the outcome is going to be of the US election debacle as that drags on. But as I've said previously, I'm under no doubt that Donald Trump's team is going to be able to produce all the evidence that's needed to show that that election was stolen by the Democrats, that major fraud, major wrongdoing occurred there, and there's no way Joe Biden is going to be president. Don't know how long this is going to take. It looks like it's going to be dragged out at least until Inauguration Day in January, but more purging of toxins to come, I would suggest, from the earth itself, as we move into 2021, whatever that may hold. In terms of trying to make sense of the events of this year, there are a couple of processes that people often deploy employ in order to try and discern truth. One is called Occam's razor, and this states that the simplest explanation for a situation is probably the valid one. So if we apply Occam's razor to the C-word narrative of 2020, well, the simplest explanation is the one that most members of the general public have swallowed through the propaganda of the mainstream media and the government. The simplest explanation is that there's this deadly virus that's come out of nowhere. Nobody knew it was coming. It's taken the world by storm. It's affected many millions of people, and it's very dangerous. You can die from it, and it's everywhere, and it's very infectious. That's the simplest solution. However, it's not the correct one. We know this. There's so much evidence, even in the public domain, to show that this whole thing is a big scam. It's been hyped up out of all proportion to justify various political agendas and ulterior motives. Come on, we all know this. I don't even need to recap on the fine detail of it. So Occam's razor doesn't apply in this case. It doesn't allow us to discern what's really going on. So another method, which has been employed by people through the ages, and it's had something of a resurgence in recent times, is what's known as the Trivium Method. So from the Latin, it means the three-way method. Tri meaning three, via meaning way. And the idea is that you apply three processes to the discernment of truth. It's logic, grammar, rhetoric. So the logic part of it involves bringing together information from a wide variety of sources, wherever you can get hold of that. You then get to the grammar stage, which involves assimilating all that information. You try to consolidate it, you cross-reference where you can, and you weed out inconsistencies, and you see what you're left with. And what you are left with is supposed to allow you to discern what is the truth of the matter, and then comes the rhetoric stage, which is where you state what you have found and you share it with others for their benefit, for the benefit of mankind. So if we apply the Trivium method to the situation we've had this year, it's very difficult to assimilate the information and to weed out the inconsistencies because there have been so many contradictions and so many anomalies. But there are a few things that we can take away from this. In terms of whether there is anything going on underneath the traditional narrative of the C word, particularly in relation to America. Well, what do we know? We know that there has been a major attempt to steal the election from Donald Trump. There have been efforts very high up in the hierarchy to prevent him from winning a second term in office. All the evidence is there to show this. We have to ask ourselves why the powers that be are so desperate to keep Donald Trump out of office. Another thing we have to factor in is that there have been actors used with various public figures this year. Prince Charles is the obvious example, but there are others. There have been imposters, doubles. I'm not saying clones, I'm just saying actors playing the part of certain famous people. Where are these people? What's happened to them? Another thing that we can know through this method is that a large number of public figures, celebrities, well-known people, have been pictured wearing ankle bracelets of the type you get when you are placed under house arrest, and in particular military house arrest. In many cases, there have been attempts to hide these by people wearing moon boots, these big kind of surgical boots that are supposed to be justified and explained by the fact that this person has had some kind of accident. They've twisted their ankle, broken their leg, whatever, so they have to wear one of these boots. But these boots, again, are consistent with what is applied by the military when people are placed under house arrest, and they're having tabs kept on them electronically in terms of their location at all times. So there are many politicians, many Hollywood actors, many television presenters, many music people, and celebrities of all kind that have been pictured this year with ankle bracelets or these moon boots on, Joe Biden among them. We have to ask ourselves what's going on there. So it's not simple and straightforward enough to just say that the C word has been brought in to justify the onset of the World Economic Forum's Great Reset and all the plans of the New World Order architects. There's something else going on here. And by applying that kind of scrutiny to it, we can see that this is the case. So 2021 and the early weeks and months of it is going to be an interesting time. We are going to strap ourselves in. Whether the incoming vibrations and whatever influence this planetary conjunction of today is going to have an effect on how those things pan out, again, we have to wait and see. But we have to try and keep our vibrations high and just hang tight in there. Particularly those of us that have been placed in renewed lockdown conditions. So in the UK, as I mentioned at the start of the video, we've got these ridiculous tier 4 impositions on our natural rights and freedoms, where basically we're told to stay at home and nothing's open. I'm not suggesting that people should obey that. There's no virtue in obeying tyrannical dictates. The virtue comes in asserting your sovereign nature and your true inherent freedom. But nevertheless, these are difficult and challenging times that particularly those of us in the UK and certain parts of the UK are undergoing. And the timing of this stuff being brought in is going to be no accident, is going to be no coincidence. So we were told some weeks ago that our overlords were going to allow us to have 5 days over the Christmas period where they were going to permit us, which is not a right that they possess, the right to permit in the first place, but they seem to think it is. 5 days where we can have relatives over and we can have family gatherings, have up to 3 families in the house, visiting the household. Then they reneged on that whole thing, and we were told that you can only have Christmas Day. That's the only day that it's safe, because apparently there's a new mutant strain of this virus which has come out of nowhere. That's convenient, isn't it? A new justification for locking everything down again just before Christmas. So people in tier 4, I believe, are being told they can't even have anyone over on Christmas Day. But if you're in tiers 2 and 3, apparently you can have people just on that day, because the virus knows the difference, It's got a calendar. So this was announced just a matter of hours before the winter solstice, before this date, 21st of December. And the intention there would have been to dump a whole load of trauma and fear and negative energy on the people of this nation, clearly in an attempt to dissipate the positive and uplifting effects of the solstice and what it involves. No accident in that. These demons know what they're doing. They study all this stuff the same way that us critically minded truth seekers do. They will know that there is a potent power incoming, triggered by this date on the solstice and the conjunction and everything that it involves. And so they've wanted people miserable and upset and depressed so that they can't embrace the effect and the influence of this time. So a rebellious act for us, a way of fighting back against this, is to not allow them to have their way, to not allow ourselves to be dwelling and wallowing in negativity, but to do whatever we need to do to rise above that. Do what makes us happy today and in the coming days. Reasons to be cheerful, Make a list of things that you enjoy doing, things that you are able to implement over these next few days, and just refuse to be kept in the darkness and the depression and the negativity. I need to follow my own advice because it's difficult for me to pull myself out of that many times, but I'm going to do that today. I'm going to do that in the incoming days, and I suggest we all do. Find ways of staying above where they want to keep us, and that is a metaphorical middle finger up to these lockdowns and their attempt to keep us wallowing in misery. We're stronger than them. We have our innate humanity intact. We have our connectivity back to source, back to creation, back to the divine intact in a way that these demons don't. They are going down. No matter how long it takes, no matter how that looks, what it involves, they are going down, and they know they are. And so I send out positive wishes and blessings to everyone this day, this solstice. I have a feeling it's going to turn out to be a very momentous day in the history of mankind. Whatever else it involves, I have no idea, but as I say, we will see in the coming days. That's the message I wanted to deliver today. I hope my thoughts and reflections resonate with people. Many tell me that they do. I'll keep doing these messages for as long as I get the inspiration, and I do get inspiration. I pull these messages through, I channel them from somewhere, and they just appear in my mind, and I get that inclination to jump on a video and share them with people. I hope it's been useful for today. Not sure when I'll do the next video, probably after Christmas. So happy Christmas to those that celebrate. If you don't, if you're not of that persuasion, enjoy the solstice. Solstice blessings to you and your families and all the rest of it. Thanks for watching.